Okay, I'm out today with my TalonSS. It's a older Talon I got back in 2000. Let's see if we can read the tank. Very poor light, but it says 699 is the tank date. I got it in 2000. But anyway, I've ordered an Alteros regulator to put in here to balance out the feet per second and the deviation between shots. So I decided to go ahead and do a setup check beforehand. I got my Barracuda Hunter Extreme, which I will use for a squirrel pellet, gray squirrels, and it's 19 grains. But anyway, it was filled up to 3,000 psi. When I checked it, there is no gauge on here, but from my fill tank. And I started shooting. And you can see it started out pretty low at 610. I was expecting around 720 feet per second. So as I shot, it, the feet per second raised, and I peaked at about 719, or 719, 709. For some reason, I had a couple low velocities and back up 715. And I can tell by the target down range that there was a difference in point of impact. So I'm going to go look at that right now and show you what the difference impact was. Okay, this target's at 44 yards. I got quite a bit of glare on the screen, but anyway, the first rounds you can see, I forget what this gun is sighted in for, but the target's at 44 yards. First group of rounds in the 600s was shooting low, and then when it got up to around 700, you can see how the group raised. At this point, I'm going to check the fill pressure on the tank because I think I've reached the initial starting point where I should be filling the tank at. So we'll go down and see what the tank fill pressure, starting pressure is. Okay, when I filled actually I didn't fill my gun up. I just put the pressure onto the Air Force tank, and it was reading 2,800 psi, so I really didn't add any air. Started shooting again. Started off 721, then it started to jump up some more again. 740, 742, then it started getting up in the 750s, 770s, 770s. Then dropping off to the 760s, and ended up at shot 68 or 69, 739. So it's definitely dropping off there. Now for me, there's going to be a sweet spot somewhere in this run here. I don't know if I want to go 20 feet per second spread, 30 feet per second spread, but let's see. If I start here, actually, as I remember, my sweet spot before with starting pressure was about 2650, 2700. So it might be somewhere right in here to start. So starting at about 757 feet per second. So let's see. Okay, just doing some quick calculations. Here's we're starting about here at 750, 740 feet per second, go all the way here 740 feet per second. I calculate I got about 40 shots, and they're within 15 feet per second. Now I'm hoping once I get the regulator in here, it will have the same amount of pressure coming out all the time, and I will be able to lengthen this shot string maybe some and balance it out is the main thing, get them very close. So we'll have to see. And if you noticed here, I have a LCD on here. I believe this is my Deal Clegg. And loosen this up. I can get it loosened up. Well, actually, I should say first, I noticed some flyers out here. And down here, I can see where it is clipping, so I'm going to have to open this up a little bit. But I bought this fitting off a place that's located overseas in Greece. And when I got it, it fit in here good, but the threads were just a little bit large. I don't know if it's the peaks or valleys or both, but I took it to my gunsmith and he trued it up some. But I've had a little bit of issue with it loosening up when I had an O-ring under it. But I took the O-ring out and I just have it button it up. But it is clipping here, so I'm going to open it up just a little bit to eliminate that. We should be good. So I'll go down range and look at the group overall and see what I got. Okay, it's when I first started shooting. You can see with a little bit lower pressure, the grounds were hitting low. And basically I just chewed out this bull with the majority of shots. Now, these shots up here, when it was clipping and hitting the LDC. So if I can eliminate that, these Hunter's Extreme definitely, your bear down will hold an inch and better. I'm sure I can do better if I'm just sort of shooting the shots off. But so I sort of got the fill range as is. I think it's going to be about 2,700 to start fill and get about 40 good shots. So. And once I get the regulator, hopefully I get a little bit more and a little bit more consistency. Alright, it just filled up the tank, and it had gone down to 2,100 PSI, give or take, and I filled it up to about 2,675 PSI. So I'm going to shoot a few more and see how the velocity starts off, see how close I am to being on my starting fill point with the feet per second I get. Alright, I filled up to 2650, started shooting fairly high, feet per second, 771, went through 28 shots and it dropped off. Now if you noticed before, the high 70s where I started off on the second fill, before I was starting 750 or so, that's about where I wanted to start off. So it appears, looking at this, depending on my feet per second spread I want, I could probably start off filling at 2,700, maybe a little bit over that, and then maybe I would start in the upper 750s and be able to get my 40 shots out with about a 30 feet per second spread, if that's what I want, depending on the accuracy and how far I'm shooting. So the other thing, as you can see, these are fairly close feet per second. You might say, why do I want a regulator? Well, as you can see, if I'm only going to be filling to 2,700 feet per second, I'm sorry, if I'm only going to be filling to 2,700 PSI, and the tank can hold 3,000, there's 300 PSI of air that I'm not using. Since the regulator will keep a constant pressure on the valve, I should be able to fill the tank to at least 3,000 PSI, and I think since the tank is rated for more than that, I could probably fill it 3,200 PSI and get a lot more shots. I'm hoping with the regulator I can get at least 60 shots, maybe 70 or more out of a tank fill of usable shots at a very consistent velocity level. So that's why I'm doing this baseline readings to see what I get once I get the regulator installed. I'll also add, I don't know how many foot-pounds of energy this is. I was hoping to get a little bit more foot-pounds of energy out of regulator, but from what I understand when I sent my order off, you really can't raise the foot-pounds of energy with a regulator. But I sort of doubt that. If I can adjust the bar up, it has a bar range from 100 to 150 bar, which is this Alteros regulator. Why I can't add a little bit more bar pressure and get a little bit higher velocity. That's why I was almost considering getting, this has a 12-inch barrel. I was almost considering getting an 18-inch barrel and getting a, I think it's R&L is the business that sells shroud extensions, and put on here, and maybe that would, the longer barrel would use more air and get a little bit higher velocity. So it's things I'm contemplating in my head right now. Okay, while I'm out here, starting off with a 2700 psi fill, which I think is my good starting point, I decided to shoot some other pellet brands to get a baseline on them before I get the regulator installed. H&N Terminators, 780 Jumbos, 15.89 Jumbo Heavies, Jumbo Monsters, though I probably would never shoot these in here, though I'm going to try to shoot a few groups. And I had the Unjin pointed and size with my Lee size die to fit the barrel, because they won't fit the Talon and Condor barrel without sizing. I have noticed the heavier pellets seem to have more uniform velocity or closer velocity levels, and I think that's because of the weight and utilizing the air better with a heavier pellet. And you can tell the gun's quieter too. I wish I'd had my Beeman Kodiaks and H&N Barracuda matches out here to try, but I'll try them later, because they were a excellent groundhog pellet in this rifle when I was shooting groundhogs with it. They seem to be a hard pellet, and they penetrated quite good in my Condor with the test, so I'll have to try those later. But like I said, getting the baseline for before I get the regulator installed.